Hey everyone, this is Built by Bands. In today's little guide video, it's more of just a kind of discussion based, kind of some tips and tricks. I just wanted to cover, especially for some of the newer users, the importance of preparation in terms of your form and preparing for the exercise, but then also preparation in terms of your mental state, specifically right as you're getting ready for that first motion of your exercise. So first, let's discuss the physical piece. I think that's the easier part to learn, the easier part to get feedback on, simply because others can see it, right? We can't see what your mind looks like. So I'm just going to demonstrate two different lifts to kind of show my own personal way I prepare for it, and you kind of take these principles and apply it to all the different motions. So first, let's start with the chest press. So the first and most important thing is making sure that it's seated correctly on both sides of your body. And so what I kind of do is I have this big picture frame here on my wall that's really reflective, so it's basically a mirror for myself, and I check both arms to make sure that it's pretty even across the board. And then the next piece is making sure that in front of you it appears even, right? It needs to be the same distance apart from your body the whole way across, right? So one hand shouldn't be farther in front of the other. So then before I even start my first exercise, I double check my position. I make sure my elbows are good, lock my shoulders back in place, breathe in deep to lock my core, and then do my first exercise, okay? So that's just the chest press. Next, let's do the overhead press real quick, just so you can get a different flavor of how I prep. So quickly hook it on the bar. Make sure that my platform is like nice and seated well on my carpet here. Check your feet, make sure they're even, because you want it balancing even. And then check the tension, right? You don't want it crooked here. You want it nice and even. So I kind of use my knees as a gauge, and I look at how the band and the bar under just slight tension are in relation to my knees. And then what I'm feeling for is if the tension feels the same on each side. If it does, I kind of squat under it a little bit and get in position. I prep myself, deep breath in, and push out, okay? So real quickly, those principles of checking your feet, checking your body, checking all that kind of stuff apply to every single exercise with X3. The thing that's universal to all of them is the tension on the band. You always have to check that the hooks and the way that the band is pulling on the hooks and the platform or your foot or your chest, whatever it is equal on both sides, because if one side is further out than the other, now the tension is off, one side is working harder than the other, you're going to develop imbalances. That's the exact opposite of what we want to accomplish. We want a uniform build across our entire body, and we want to build evenly, right? So on that note too, even if you have like an injury, like I have a bad right shoulder, it's significantly worse than my left. My left is clearly stronger and more stable. I still don't like favor my right to try and develop my right further. Just keep it even. Your body will adapt over time and kind of build evenly. So don't try and play that game. It's just not going to work out well. The next thing on the physical piece is, especially with like the deadlifts and the squats, check that your spine is neutral position. Bend over rows too. Don't let yourself, before your first rep, curve a little before trying to like pound it out. Make sure that your form is very good on that first movement, okay? That's enough about the physical. If you want more in-depth instruction on what the form should look like throughout, I've made a guide for pretty much every single lift. If I don't have it, you can go to the official site itself for the X3 bar, and they have demonstration videos there for each exercise. I just want to talk some additional tips and things to consider if you're not really feeling confident before the first movement of an exercise. So the next piece is the mental. So this is the much harder part to master. If you're new to exercising and you never really did sports or anything like that before, this is probably going to be the thing that takes you the longest to develop, and the thing that will hold you back the most from significant progress over time. Excuse me 1 second, I'm going to get some water here. So the mental piece. I would argue this is more important to prepare before you make your first motion than any other thing you can do, other than like your neutral spine, just to ensure you don't hurt your back. So let's use the overhead press again. When I walk up to the platform, I take a couple seconds to just clear my mind of everything that's not overhead press. So I know it sounds a little cheesy, but I'm not going to think about work or my kid or my wife or whatever else is going on in life. For this exercise, I'm shutting everything out and I'm only thinking about me and my system and pushing myself to my absolute limit on the overhead press. I'm not even worried about the next exercise. I pretend this is the only thing I'm doing right now, today. It's the only thing I'm going to do in the moment on this lift. So by doing that, I take a couple deep breaths. I try and kind of center myself and just make sure that I'm prepared to push myself to my absolute failure point. Like I said again, I do all the physical things just like I described. Okay, make sure everything's set nice and even across the board to prepare for the exercise. And then before I go, as I take those deep breaths, that's my last little moment of mentally preparing. And I get into the lift. So now that I'm ready, I just do one quick check again physically to make sure physically I'm in position. And now my mental state again, all I'm thinking is this first push. Under control as hard as I can, okay? And as I'm doing these, I try to block out the pain and I only think about giving one more, all I got. Every single one. So as you start to really get tired, it's okay to maybe pause for a second, take a breath to help yourself recover for a second, keep it under tension, and then really push it out, you know? So that's just the overhead press, but that principle applies, all right? So pretend each exercise you're doing is the only one you're doing today, that's it. That helps you ensure that you're going to give everything you got on that one exercise, right? Whether it's chest press, overhead press, whatever it may be. That's why now I've started taking close to 5 minutes rest between my exercises when I'm not in a rush. If time is restrained or constrained and I have to work out quickly, I don't do that. But I found that taking the extra couple minutes between each set allows me to calm myself down. My heart rate comes down, my breathing comes under control, and my mind is less distracted by the fatigue and how much my muscles are kind of burning and hurting from the previous exercise, and I can begin focusing on the next one. So for me personally, the hardest one to do this with is the split squat. I push myself to my absolute breaking point on split squats, and the resulting sensation that I get from that is what I would describe as suffering. So when I do my first split squat set, the next 5 minutes are just devoted to just calming myself down, trying to just work through the intense sensation in the leg and begin to focus for my next exercise, so that by the time I come up to my platform again, like I just talked about, I push everything else out and I'm on that lift, okay? So if you are struggling to get to total failure, that's like 99% mental. That means that you haven't won the mental battle yet, and when the intensity gets to the point where you really feel the muscles and they're screaming at you and your body's saying, hey, this hurts and I need to stop, that's when you have to switch it on and tell yourself, no, I'm going to give one more, and just give one more. And then when that's done, just give one more and give one more and give one more and go until you literally can't push it anymore. So that's why on my chest press, I pretty frequently have 15 to 30 partial reps, because when I get to that point where I can't get a full rep anymore, I just go and I go and I go, and I keep telling myself, don't quit, give one more, until I can't really move it at all. If it's only moving like a centimeter, then I just stop. But I really think that's where most people get held up on and are not unlocking the true power of this, what the system provides you with, is in those partial reps, and that is all mental, because you're already tired, you've already done full fatigue through the full range of motion, and now it's the mental game where you have to keep going and going and going. I think that's why Dr. Jockovic talks about this, how Dr. Sean Baker said that this is the hardest workout he's ever done. I think that's what he's referring to, is how the intensity of it stacks up so quickly that mentally you have to really push through that barrier. Again, if you're an experienced athlete or you've worked out a lot in your life, this is very common knowledge. You already know this is probably a second nature to you. If that's not second nature for you, if it's not second nature to you, this is the thing you really need to challenge yourself on. Be very open with yourself on. Are you really going to failure, or did you give up a little bit? And so then the next time, you can push yourself that much harder, all right? I try not to get too caught up on like the number of reps I'm doing, because ultimately I don't think it matters. I think what matters is giving your best effort on that given day, because we all have ups and downs, and it's unrealistic to think that you're always going to do better than you did the day before. But you can still give your best for that day, right? And so for me, what that looks like is sometimes, I hit 20, right? That's my failure point that day. And then maybe the next day I'm really tired, so I only get 15, but I'm still going to my absolute breaking point where I'm mentally having to push for one more and just get through. So this video is getting a little long. I just really wanted to highlight the importance of pushing through it mentally. And the last caution I'll give with this is when you're pushing through that mental barrier and you're trying to just get one more, you still have to focus on your form, especially on the more vulnerable movements like the deadlift. Because if you try and just push one more and you totally throw your form out the window, you're going to hurt yourself. So it's easier to develop this skill on what I would consider the less risky movements like the bicep curl. It's extremely difficult to hurt yourself on the curl. As long as you're kind of going with a band that's within your ability, right? Like if you're only using the white or light gray band, you're probably going to be just fine to start developing this mental fatigue battle thing, because worst case, you're just going to have to put the bar down, right? There's not really, your spine isn't involved. Don't try and develop this with deadlift. You're going to hurt yourself. Another easy one that would be for this is like triceps. Triceps is a great one, I think, because for me personally, the intensity of the burn gets very high very quick, but it's not so overwhelming like the split squat that I can still really push myself to get a boatload of partial reps. And every time you kind of push yourself mentally a little bit further, you've kind of created a new boundary for yourself, and it's going to be that much easier the next time to keep getting to it. So hopefully this helps. Hopefully it's not just a big ramble by me. But if you have any questions, please comment or reach out to me directly. I'm happy to provide some feedback. And then same thing too, if you feel like you're struggling with how to do this, post in the group and kind of state that, right? You're really struggling with the mental piece there, and maybe we can kind of examine what you're doing and see if maybe there's some coaching we can give you. But other than that, just stay safe and stay swole. Take care.